Let's bring in criminal defense attorney Brian Claypool to talk more about this extremely disturbing case. Brian, thank you for coming on. Now, unless a court rules for an extension, a suspect is only to be held in custody for 72 hours or more before charges are filed, or they must be released. Now, this suspect, Ayoola Ajayi, was arrested on Friday. How are they holding him without charging him?
Well, the prosecution filed a motion with the court and got permission from a judge to have an extra week in which to file formal charges against the defendant. The court granted that request. That gives them another week, and that's really important because I think what the prosecution wants to do here are two things. Number one, they want to firm up the forensic evidence. They want to, first of all, I know it's tragic to talk about, but they want to verify for certain that that charred body tissue is that of Mackenzie and that the belongings are hers, because that's powerful evidence against the defendant. And then the second thing I think they're probably trying to do is they're buying more time to then take that forensic evidence they have and confront the suspect and interrogate him again now and try to get a confession out of him. They need a little bit more time to do that because that would make this case, a deadlock case to get a conviction then.
Is it possible the suspect was potentially cooperating in the search for Lueck's body?
Good question. I'm not sure of that, because if he's already cooperating, then I'm not certain why prosecution would really need an extra week. He may have been helping with under the pretense that he might get some kind of deal where he serves life in prison without the possibility of parole. That could be.
I mean, the evidence is so overwhelming. I mean, the neighbors, in fact, saw him burning, and they smelled some sort of burning smell, enough so that they remember it distinctly in his backyard. And they have found her DNA in his home. I mean, I don't know what more evidence they would possibly need, but the motion granted by Utah's 3rd District Court giving the Salt Lake City or County DA's office until next week to charge Ajayi in Lueck's death speaks volumes. What more do you believe the DA is looking for in order to get these charges to stick? Because clearly they've got the evidence they need, but it's better to have more than enough in order to convince a jury.
Right. You raise a good point. I mean, how many cases have we seen where, boy, it really looks bad, it really smells bad for a defendant, but a lot of times you have really powerful circumstantial evidence and you want to lock down, for example, physical evidence and forensic evidence that we're talking about. We're not sure with 100% certainty that those are the belongings, for example, of Mackenzie. We want to make sure, the forensic analysts want to make sure within this next week that those belongings they found in his backyard, that they are Mackenzie's belongings, that those human remains are those of Mackenzie. We want to be sure of that because the prosecution doesn't want to go into a case where a defense lawyer makes an argument, well, we're not 100% sure that's actually her body because it's burned beyond recognition. So I think that's what they need to do. And then, like I said, they really want to get a confession out of this guy. That would make this case foolproof then.
Okay, so, and I would imagine his defense attorney would probably want to come up with some kind of plea because the evidence is so overwhelming. I want to talk more about this suspect. You know, when you hear of this poor girl who was last seen by a Lyft driver, it unfortunately reminds us all of the Uber driver that in fact had murdered one of the passengers. This Lyft driver, in fact, has been very helpful in helping figure out where she was last dropped off, that allowed investigators to lead them to the suspect. The suspect we don't know much about as far as how these two got connected. Are you hearing more about how she might have met this guy in the first place and what his motive would have been?
Well, the only thing I've learned, and again, I haven't validated this or proven it, but it is that she may have been connected with him through some kind of dating application or some kind, where like a sugar daddy kind of situation. Again, I can't confirm that, but that's one of the things that I've heard. And another thing to raise for your viewers too that I think is interesting is this defendant was charged with alleged rape, I think in 2014, 2015, and tragically the victim in that case decided not to move forward and prosecute, or else maybe he would have been off the street.
I mean, the fact that there's a contractor that said that he actually approached him, he wanted to build some sort of escape sadistic room in his basement with hooks on the walls. I mean, if that doesn't scream out weird. I don't know what does. Brian Claypool, that's all the time we have, though. We do appreciate you coming on talking about this. We'll continue to watch this case as it unfolds.
Thank you.